Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is lecture number 11. The name of the paper is Criticism 1. We have been discussing Aristotle's Poetics, and in Aristotle's Poetics, we are discussing Aristotle's theory of tragedy. This is the second lecture of Aristotle's theory of tragedy, and in this lecture, we will try to find out answer to this question: what kind of tragic hero can create pity and fear in the audience? There are three options, and we will discuss those three options. This lecture is specifically for the students of BS English 5th semester GDC Pubby, and it is also for the students of those colleges which are affiliated with Abdul Wali Khan University. Before this answer, we did this lecture, the lecture of Aristotle's theory of tragedy. This was our first lecture. We talked about his definition of tragedy, that he defined tragedy as the imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude. And then we discussed these different points. We discussed the three objects of imitation: the character, emotion, and action, two means of imitation: song, melody, and diction, and one spectacle. We also talked about the seriousness of the tragedy, the magnitude, and the completeness. Now we will do this area, which is again the part of tragedy or part of the discussion of the theory of tragedy of Aristotle. We know that the function of tragedy is to arouse these two emotions. The first emotion is pity, and the second emotion is fear. Pity for who? Of course, pity for that tragic hero who suffers or who dies or suffers a lot. Death is not necessary. There may be some other grave uh, or serious thing which happens to this hero or tragic hero. So we feel pity for him because we think that whatever happened to him was either undeserved, or if it was deserved, it was not wholly deserved. And the examples are Hamlet. Of course, Hamlet died in the end of the story, and the only tragic flaw he had was to delay his action. Now you can see, for delaying some action, that much punishment is not good, and we don't think that he deserved that punishment. Lear, the only flaw in him was that he loved flattery, but the love of flattery would not bring so much worry to a person in ordinary life as Lear suffered. And therefore, we think that Hamlet, Lear, or even Oedipus, they did not deserve what happened to them. So, therefore, we feel pity for that victim, for that tragic hero, the protagonist, who suffers a lot, who suffers so much, though the fault is not that great, but his suffering is very great. So, we feel pity for him, pity for the person who suffers in the tragedy. Or fear for who? Fear for ourselves. Now, you know that we identify ourselves with the protagonist because protagonist is like us. uh, he is neither completely good nor completely bad. He is a sort of person that we are, so we identify ourselves with him. And when this identification is done, we fear for ourselves that this thing might happen. There is a remote chance, if not a great chance, there can be a remote chance of that happening to us. So we feel pity for the person who suffers and fear for ourselves. And then the main function of tragedy is to remove the excess of fear and the excess of pity, because both of these two emotions, if they are in excess, they will psychologically be bad for us. So therefore, they become balanced after watching the tragedy. Pity and fear, both of them go to that level which for us is psychologically not harmful. If there is much pity in us and much fear in us, we become cowards. And therefore, much pity and much uh, extreme pity and extreme fear is not good for us. Therefore, they need to be made balanced. And catharsis does this, and this is the function of tragedy, that these emotions, they are not completely removed, but a purgation takes place, and during this purgation process, both these emotions are sublimated. They are made, they are balanced, they become balanced. We can take the examples of Lear, Othello, Hamlet, and Oedipus. Because Lear suffers a lot, we feel pity for him, we feel fear for ourselves. The same thing might happen to us. Othello is a jealous person. This is his tragic flaw, but we feel pity for him because, as a whole, he was a very good person, and therefore we fear that the same thing might happen to us as well. Hamlet and Oedipus, all of them were not completely bad people. They had, on the whole, they were very good, but they had their errors of judgment. So these people arouse pity in us because they suffered more than they deserved. All these characters, tragic characters, they suffered more than they actually deserved. Pity and fear, these two emotions are aroused, and this is the function of tragedy, to arouse these emotions and then to have the purgation of these emotions, the purification of these emotions. But these emotions are aroused only if a particular type of protagonist or a particular type of tragic hero suffers a lot or falls from riches to rags. This happens only in some cases. Aristotle discusses three cases. In the first case, which he dismisses as bad, is this, that sometimes if an absolutely good man suffers, pity and fear are not aroused, but we are shocked. This comes out to be a shock to us if an absolutely good man suffers in his life. We feel a kind of injustice which is done to that person who is absolutely good because he has done nothing wrong, and as a result he deserved some good end, but a bad end comes to him, and we think that a kind of injustice is done. So therefore our pity is not aroused, it is drowned rather. The opposite takes place, and then we also do not identify ourselves with absolute good person because we are not absolutely good person. A normal human being is not absolutely good, so our identification with this person does not take place. And when the identification does not take place, that pity and fear is also not aroused, because pity and fear are aroused when we identify ourselves uh, with the character and we think the same thing might happen to us as well. The only case in Greek dramas is that of Antigone, written by Sophocles. Antigone is the woman who was absolutely good. There was nothing wrong with her, and she suffered from death. She died in this tragic drama named Antigone. Antigone is the name of a woman as well as the name of the drama by Sophocles. In Antigone drama, um, Oedipus, as you know, he had two sons, Eteocles or Polynices. These were the two sons. You can Google the pronunciation of these two. These two were fighting in order to get the kingship of Thebes. And as a result, both of them died. And the next king was Creon, and Creon decided that Polynices should not be given a proper burial, that he should be left on the field of battle, and that Eteocles should be given a proper burial. Polynices, should not be given because he was leading a foreign army, and as a result, he was a betrayer, and therefore he would not be given a proper burial. However, his sister Antigone decides to give him a proper burial, and she buries him. But while she was burying him, she was caught, and she was condemned to death by Creon. Now, Creon's son uh, was related to Antigone. She was his fiancée, and as a result, when he found out that this thing has happened, and then Antigone was condemned to death. But before this condemnation, before this um, process actually takes place, she takes her own life. She kills herself. She hangs herself. Then Creon, who doesn't know that this thing has happened, he takes the advice of a seer named Tiresias, and Tiresias persuades Creon that this should not be done. And he is persuaded and he thinks, yes, okay, it should not be done. And then he orders it otherwise. He cancels the order, but then it is too late because Antigone had already hung herself. Haemon, who has to get married to her, comes to know this, and he kills himself. He commits suicide too. Creon's mother, Creon's wife, I'm sorry, she kills herself. She is Haemon's mother, and when she comes to know about her son, she also kills herself. So Aristotle thinks that this type of man or woman is not proper for the arousal of pity and fear, because if sense of injustice is felt, that a good man or a good woman should not have suffered, and our pity, instead of arousing, is drowned because we don't identify ourselves with them. So, this case, he condemns that this should not be so. This is a absolutely good man, is not a fit tragic hero. The second case is when a completely bad man suffers in tragedy and dies in tragedy, or suffers greatly in tragedy. Once again, our pity is not aroused because we think that he was the worst of men and that he deserved to be hanged, or he deserved to suffer a lot. Therefore, our pity is not aroused. We are rather satisfied that he deserved this and it was good that it happened to him. Once again, we do not identify ourselves with this man because ordinarily people are not completely bad. We are intermediate sorts of people, and therefore our identification with a completely bad man is not done. And when we do not identify ourselves with them, the result is that our pity is not aroused. In Greek tragedies, there is no example of such a case where a bad man, a completely bad man, suffers. However, in English dramas, there are many examples. There is the example of Macbeth. Macbeth was the man who killed his own relative to get his kingship, who killed his own friends, who killed a lot of people. He was a very cruel man. The same was the case with Richard III. He was also not a he was a completely bad man, and even then Shakespeare was successfully Shakespeare was successful in writing such beautiful and effective dramas. So this second case is also discarded by Aristotle that a completely bad man is also not fit to be a tragic hero. The third case, however, is ideal when the major character, the tragic character, is neither absolutely good nor absolutely bad. That is an intermediate sort of person. When he is an intermediate sort of person, we as human beings identify ourselves with him because every human being, the normal human being, is neither absolutely good nor absolutely bad, and as a result, identification with him is possible. Yes, however, there should be some error in him, which is called hamartia. This is called the error of judgment, and this is due to that error of judgment that main character suffers, and when he suffers, this undeserved or partially deserved death or punishment, then pity and fear both are aroused, and catharsis also takes place. And there are many examples in Greek tragedies, also in English tragedies. In Oedipus, for example, he tries himself to run away from his fate, but he is caught in it. Hamlet had the only tragic flaw that he delayed the action of killing Claudius, and he suffered for it a lot. Lear, the only flaw in him was that he was the lover of flattery, and he suffered a lot because of this one fault, this one flaw. So the third type, the third case, according to Aristotle, is the ideal one. Summarizing this now, today we discussed that the function of tragedy is to arouse pity and fear, and then to have the catharsis of these two emotions, that is, the purification of these two emotions, takes place because of tragedy. Now, this happens in Lear, Othello, Hamlet, Oedipus, but those characters, the main characters, called the tragic characters, the protagonist, you can call him a hero, they should be of a special sort of person to arouse these two emotions of pity and fear. Absolutely good man, if he suffers a lot, then the emotion of pity and fear is not aroused. This, and Aristotle discards this. He rejects this type of person is not fit to be a tragic hero. The second case is a completely bad man. When he suffers or dies and is punished a lot, we are satisfied. Pity and fear is not aroused, and we think that it was deserved and it was good that it happened. However, the third case is an ideal case, and that is the fit type of tragic hero who is neither absolutely good nor absolutely bad. ये उर्दू में सुन लें, हम पढ़ रहे हैं ट्रेजिडी, थियोरी ऑफ ट्रेजिडी, एरिस्टोटल्स थियोरी ऑफ ट्रेजिडी को, और हमने कंप्लीट की डिस्कशन के बाद ये आज हमने पढ़ा कि ट्रेजिडी का जो फंक्शन है, और ये कंटिन्यू करता है, वही एक लेक्चर जारी है कि ट्रेजिडी का जो कम फंक्शन है वो पिटी और फिर अराउज करना है. अराउजल के बाद उसकी कैथारसिस, उसकी प्यूरिफिकेशन, उसकी परगेशन, ये ज़रूरी है. तो ये तब होगा जब एक ख़ास किस्म का प्रोटैगनिस्ट या मेन किरदार या ट्रेजिक हीरो वो मुसीबत में मुब्तला हो. तो 3 ऑप्शंस वो हमें देता है. पहला ऑप्शन ये है कि अगर बिल्कुल मुकम्मल तौर पर अच्छा आदमी वो मर जाए या उसको साथ ट्रेजेडी में ज़्यादती हो जाए, तो पीटी और फेयर अराउज नहीं होगा, बल्कि हम शॉक हो जाएंगे, हमें सदमा पहुंचेगा और हम समझेंगे कि नाइंसाफ़ी हो गई है. पीटी हमारी डाउन हो जाएगी बजाय अराउज होने के, और हम इस बंदे के साथ अपने आप को आइडेंटिफाई भी नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि हम एब्सोल्युटली गुड नहीं है. ग्रीक ड्रामाज में इसकी जो एक मिसाल है वो एंटिगोनी की है, जिसको सोफोक्लीज ने लिखा है. एंटिगोनी ड्रामा यूं है कि इडिपस के दो बेटे एटियोक्लीज और पालिनीसिस ये आपस में लड़ते हैं थीब्स की किंगशिप के लिए, बादशाह बनने के लिए, और दोनों मर जाते हैं. क्रेओन जो है یہ بادشاہ بنتا ہے اور یہ آرڈر دیتا ہے کہ ایٹھیوکلیس کو دفنایا جائے گا مناسب طریقے سے، اور جو دوسرا ہے پالینیسیس، اس کو نہیں دفنایا جائے گا، بیٹل فیلڈ پہ ایسے ہی پڑا رہنے دیا جائے گا۔ اس کی بہن انٹیگنے اس حکم کی ڈس اوبیڈینس کرتی ہے اور اس کو بری کرتی ہے۔ بری کرتے وقت وہ پکڑی جاتی ہے اور اس پہ سزائے موت ہوتی ہے۔ یہ اصل میں منگیتر ہے کریان کے بیٹے کی، جس کا نام ہیمان ہے۔ اور اس کے بعد ایک ان کا بزرگ آتا ہے سیئر، ٹائریسیس اس کا نام ہے، اور وہ آمادہ کرتا ہے کریان کو کہ جو گارڈز ہیں وہ نہیں چاہتے کہ پالینیسیس کو بیریل سے منع کیا جائے، بلکہ وہ چاہتے ہیں کہ اس کو مناسب طریقے سے دفنایا جائے۔ تو کریان مان جاتا ہے، لیکن بڑی دیر ہو جاتی ہے کیونکہ انٹاگنے نے اپنے آپ کو لٹکا دیا ہے اور خودکشی کر لی ہے۔ ہیمان کو پتہ چلتا ہے کہ اس نے خودکشی کر لی ہے، وہ بھی اپنے آپ کو مارتا ہے۔ ہیمان کی ماں کو، جو کریانس کی بیوی ہے، پتہ چلتا ہے، وہ بھی اپنے آپ کو مار دیتی ہے۔ اور انٹاگنے نے ایسا کوئی کام نہیں کیا ہے جس میں کوئی خرابی ہو، تو وہ ایک اچھا کردار ہے۔ ارسٹاٹل اس کو ریجیکٹ کرتا ہے کہ ایسا شخص، خواہ مرد ہو یا عورت ہو، یہ ٹریجڈی کے لیے فٹ نہیں ہے۔ دوسرا کیس وہ ہے جب مکمل طور پہ خراب انسان ہو اور وہ غرق ہو جائے، تو ہماری پیٹی اراؤز نہیں ہوگی، بلکہ ہم کہیں گے کہ اچھا ہو گیا کہ یہ مر گیا، یہ اس کا مستحق تھا، ہم مطمئن ہوں گے۔ اور ہماری اس کے ساتھ آئیڈینٹیفیکیشن بھی ممکن نہیں ہے، کیونکہ ہم کمپلیٹلی بیڈ بھی نہیں ہے، کمپلیٹلی گڈ بھی نہیں ہے، ہم درمیانے ہیں، تو ہمارا ہیرو بھی درمیانہ ہونا چاہیے۔ اور گریک میں ایسی کوئی ٹریجڈی نہیں ہے جس میں بالکل خراب آدمی غرق ہو۔ شیکسپیئر کے مختلف ڈرامے ایسے ہیں جس میں میکبیتھ ڈرامہ ہے، یہ اپنے رشتہ دار کو مارتا ہے اور اس سے بادشاہ چھینتا ہے، رچرڈ the تھرڈ، اور یہ اور بھی بہت سارے لوگوں کو مارتا ہے، دوستوں کو بھی مارتا ہے۔ رچرڈ the تھرڈ بھی بڑا ظالم ہے۔ رچرڈ the تھرڈ کی یہ مختصر 3 لائن کی سٹوری ہے، آپ خود پڑھ لیں۔ اور یہ بھی اسی طریقے سے ایک جیلس بندہ ہے، اور یہ چاہتا ہے کہ کنگ آف انگلینڈ بنے، اپنے بھائی کو مارتا ہے، نیفیز کو مارتا ہے اور بادشاہ بنتا ہے، آخر میں اس کو بھی مارا جاتا ہے، لیکن بہرحال یہ ایک ظالم بندے کی کہانی ہے۔ تھرڈ کیس آئیڈیل کیس ہے کہ بندہ نہ تو بالکل 100% اچھا ہو، نہ 100% برا ہو، درمیانہ ہو۔ ہاں، اس میں ایک ہیماتیا موجود ہو، ایرر آف ججمنٹ، غلطی موجود ہو ججمنٹ کرنے میں، جو ججمنٹ وہ کرتا ہے وہ ججمنٹ کی غلطی ہو جائے، ججمنٹ میں غلط ہو جائے، تو ایز سچ وہ ایسی غلطی ہوتی بھی نہیں ہے۔ مثلاً ایڈیپس نے تو کوئی غلطی نہیں کی ہے، وہ تو جو کرتا ہے بھاگنے کے لیے کرتا ہے اپنی فیٹ سے، وہ تو بیچ میں پھنس جاتا ہے۔ تو اگر کوئی غلطی ہوتی ہے تو بڑی مائنر ہوتی ہے، اس کے ڈاؤن فال کا سبب بنتی ہے۔ تو اب ہمیں پیٹی اور فیئر محسوس ہوتا ہے، کیونکہ ہم آئیڈینٹیفائی کرتے ہیں اس بندے کے ساتھ اپنے آپ کو، اور پیٹی ہم محسوس کرتے ہیں اس بندے کے لیے، اور فیئر محسوس کرتے ہیں اپنے لیے، اور کیتارسس بھی ہوتا ہے پیٹی اور فیئر کا، سبلیمیشن اور پیوریفیکیشن اور پرگیشن یہ بھی ہوتا ہے۔ کیتارسس پہ ہم بات مزید بھی کریں گے۔ ایک ہیماٹیا ہے، شاید اس پہ ایک لیکچر چھوٹا سا ہو جائے تو یہ مناسب رہے گا، اور پھر ہم کیتارسس پہ پورا ایک فل لیکچر لیں گے۔ سو دیٹس آل فار ناؤ۔ ہم نے جو چیز پڑھی وہ 3 کیسز تھے ہیرو کے یا ٹریجک ہیرو کے، کہ وہ کس قسم کا آدمی ہو تو پیٹی اور فیئر اراؤز ہوگا، کس قسم کا نہ ہو تو نہیں ہوگا۔ تھینک یو اینڈ گڈ لک۔